everyone's super busy. So we want to make sure that we are, like making the most of our time, trialing out a new time to see if this works better for everybody. I'm going to start real quick with some announcements. Our fifth annual conference is coming up on February 28th with our speaker. Amanda Kelly is going to be our keynote speaker. She's Behavior Babe, if you guys have heard that name instead of Amanda Kelly. But we're super excited to have her. The topic's going to be expansion of ABA services outside of that traditional like early intervention role that we commonly find where it's clinical. And so we're just looking for people that have expertise and are subject matter experts in that. So we're having a call for speakers. If you're interested in speaking for us at the conference, the deadline for that is 1/26. So we have some time to like review everyone's applications and proposals, see what's best fit. If you're interested in speaking for us at a CEU event, but your passion project is not aligned with our topic, that's okay. We're so happy to have other speakers for other monthly events. So shoot us an email. But the topic for the conference, we do want to stay aligned with that. With the topic of expansion of ABA services. We're going to have code words throughout the presentation. There's going to be 2 code words. You will just need to put that in the feedback form. You don't need to message it to anybody. You just need to put it in the feedback form at the end of the presentation. It's January 2026, so that means that we are needing to have everybody renew their memberships as applicable. So if you are wanting to become a member, it's $40, $30 if you're part of a business membership. This year, the business memberships are now $100, and then $80 for nonprofits. If you're interested in that, please, fill out that form, submit your payment so you can become members and get all the perks that comes with being a member. And then last thing before I forget to, with the conference, if you're a member, kind of another perk of being a member is it's going to be $35 for the conference if you're a member, and then $80 if you are a non-member. So again, we're providing at least 5.5 CEUs at that event and lunch. So to me, I think that's a steal personally. More details on that, but be sure to pencil that into y'all's calendars. We won't disappoint. So without further ado, am I missing anything, board members? I don't think I am, but
Oh, did you want to give out or do a drawing for a free membership today?
yeah,
We-
we can
Yeah.
do that at the
Or
end of the
do that at the very
presentation.
end?
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'll go ahead and introduce Shirley, and then at the very end, we can draw a name for a free membership for the year. So Shirley is a personal connection to me, and I can just speak so highly of her. She was the person that got me involved in this organization when I was an RBT, and has always been so compassionate and kind. And I'm so thankful for all the mentorship she provided for me as I was accruing hours to become a BCBA many, many moons ago, it feels like. So Shirley Sosa is a bilingual BCBA in Georgia who has spent her career supporting families and clinicians across early intervention and adolescent services in both home and clinical settings. In her role as an assessment and quality assurance specialist, she focuses on strengthening clinical quality through staff training, documentation support, compliance practices, and reliable assessment systems that can be sustained in real-world service delivery. She is the founder of ABA Advisor, an educational project built to make ethical supervision more practical, supportive, and culturally responsive. Shirley's work centers on helping behavior analysts lead with clarity, reduce crisis-driven supervision, and build systems that improve outcomes for clients while protecting the well-being of providers implementing care. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Sherley Sosa.
Well, thank you so much. Like Misty said, I'm Sherley Sosa, and I'm presented by ABA Advisor, and today we will go over the RBT supervision and how this is an ethical and competency-based service. First of all, I want to introduce to you to ABA Advisor. ABA Advisor is a space created by practicing BCBAs who care about supervision that actually improves clients' outcomes. We break down supervision, ethics, and clinical decision-making into clear and repeatable processes. We use real examples, step-by-step frameworks, and honest stories from the field. We built this space because we kept hearing BCBA saying things like, I really don't know what to do in this session, or I don't know what to do with my RBT. So our content is designed for BCBAs, trainees, and RBTs who want supervision that feels organized, ethical, competency-based, and not random or just checkbox driven. This presentation is for BCBAs who supervise RBTs and clinical leaders who want supervision that actually builds competencies. Also, this presentation is for anyone who has ever started a session with, okay, what are you working on today? Or anyone who has ever started supervision with, how's it going? How's it been? And you're hoping that that RBT is gonna give you something to work with. And lastly, this presentation is for anyone who has ever realized the supervision started the moment you open the door. And if you are doing this, that supervision starts when you just say like, hi, good morning, you are already late. I know that supervision is defined differently by different organizations. This includes the board, our payers, HASP, and other entities. But the definition of supervision that I'm going to be using today is the one defined by the BCBA. This supervision occurs where you're with your patient. In other words, when you're observing that patient, you are also doing directions to the technician, and you are also doing protocol modification. As we know, supervision is itself a behavior service. In our own ethics code, talks about the responsibility we have with our supervisees and with our RBTs. So if you don't want to break the code, the ethics code, this presentation is for you. So don't worry, I got you. For that, we have to learn, or we have to talk about our learning objectives. After this presentation, you're going to be able to describe how the BACB Ethics Code frames supervision as a professional responsibility. That means that you're going to be able to say in plain language why planning supervision isn't optional, but is an ethical safeguard. Number two, you're going to plan at least one structured RBT supervision block using competencies, BST, and fidelity tools. You're going to leave with a template that literally you can use after this presentation. And number three, you're going to execute, or you're going to see how I execute a structured RBT supervision of at least 30 minutes utilizing the pre-planned outline that I'm going to give you. So next time that you are in supervision, you can have this as an example, and you don't have to think about the steps that you have to take. You can just plug it into your session. Before I start with this presentation, I love participation, guys. So I'm going to play a game with you. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and I would love for you guys to tell me what you think about these questions. You can unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat, and I will be more than happy to read your answers to everyone. So the first question is, what is the most common piece of feedback RBTs have about supervision? Who's going to be the brave one? Who's going to break the ice?
Not frequent enough.
Very good. Camille, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I cannot see who's talking, but Camille said it doesn't happen often. Oh man, guys, I'm so sorry. Not frequent enough. But yes, not frequent enough. The BCBA was on the computer the whole time. That's a good one. They don't get enough feedback during supervision sessions. Great, great. I love that everyone it's talking about the topics that I'm going to be talking about. Definitely, this is very important. One thing is being aware of this, and other thing is how to fix it, right? Too much direction, but not modeling. Very good. Insurance requirement versus consistent supervision. Very good answers, guys. I'm going to move on and I'm going to ask you the second question. Which recommended practices are often missing in everyday supervision?
An agenda or like kind of informing what your focus of the supervision is. In my experience, I've had RBTs be like kind of feeding off of what Ariana said about being on the computer. They don't know what we're doing on the computer necessarily. So if we're not like informing them, sometimes they're like, what are they doing? Like, so just that like clarity, I guess, or that transparency.
Very good, definitely. Jessica said goals of supervision. Jenna said objectives and modeling, like Fabiola said about the modeling. Camille said time for questions or follow through. Very good. And Ellen said checking in with the RBTs to make sure we are giving them feedback based on their preference in person or after the session. Ooh, that's a good one. Thank you for that one. I might add that one, that one in my presentation next time. That's a really good one. The third question is, what does RBT supervision need? Structure. Great, Jenna. Goal-driven, feedback-driven, Jessica. Very good. Consistency. Understanding their needs, strengths, and areas of growth. Very good. Acknowledgement. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Thank you, Fabiola. Positive feedback. Yes, guys, I love all of the report. Yes, client progress. All of this are great. One of the things that I always hear is like, yes, I know all of these things, but how do I put them together? Collaboration. Thank you, Tina. So that's what I'm going to be presenting about today. I'm going to show you how to do it so you don't have to overthink it. You can just replicate these things. So let's talk about what the literature says throughout the presentation. And throughout the whole presentation, I am going to be answering these questions. And of course, I'm going to be adding a little bit of my personal experience. So thank you so much, guys, for participating. I love it. So if supervision starts with, so what do you want to show me today? You might be breaking the ethics code. The BACB ethics code applies to direct service delivery, supervision, training and assessment, and consultation and oversight. So that means that supervision must be planned and with a purpose, be grounded in the science of behavior, and include assessments, goals, interventions, and data. Another question that I have for you, just to think, you don't have to unmute or tell me anything in the chat, just to think throughout the whole presentation. How do you start supervision? And this is very important because the way that you start supervision is going to set the tone for the rest of the session. So if you really don't know or you're unsure how to start that part of supervision, you definitely are going to struggle throughout the whole time. The question that I mentioned before, what do you want to show me today, isn't always wrong. Please don't take me wrong. You can ask this to the technician when you start supervision. But if this is your default question or you ask similar questions like that, it usually means that you don't have clear goals, you don't have a plan to protect the client, and you don't have a way to evaluate RBT performance. Our own ethics code has core principles for a reason. And these core principles not only apply to our clients, but also apply to our RBTs. These include benefit others, ensure competencies, and be accountable for Supervise's work. If an RBT handles crisis behaviors badly, the BACB is not going to say, well, that RBT should have known better. No, that BACB is going to look at you, is going to investigate you because you are the one responsible for those RBTs. So definitely we need to do better at this. Behavioral services include managing and supervising others, and you are accountable for the quality of services your RBTs are delivering by providing that high quality supervision with your scope of competency, their competency, not only their hours, but actually ensuring that your RBT's work meet the professional standards. Use profession use supervision to protect clients from hard or poor implementation and maintain documentation of supervision activities and performance over time. This can be done with fidelity checks or any similar tool that you can use to see the progress over time. Or something better, guys, you can use your supervision notes. If you write inconsistent supervision notes, that means that you don't have record of what's happening in that session. So I invite you to start thinking of your supervision notes as a way to keep track of things. Supervision must meet the same standards as the treatment plan. That is, supervision should be assessed, supervision should have goals, supervision should be monitored, and supervision should have documentation. I want you to think about your first client that have, let's say, physical aggression in their repertoire. You were very happy to create your behavior support plan or your behavior intervention plan, and definitely you created a beautiful plan for that. But as we know, they're new kids, right? So that behavior intervention plan is not going to be well developed because we don't know what works for that child still. Of course, our whole point is that at the end of, 2-3 weeks a month, everyone can identify functions of the behavior and run that behavior intervention plan perfectly. But if our supervision is on plan, you might be spend time doing some other things that are not as important and not focusing on what really matters, which is the RBT behavior. Yes, we need to focus on the child, but also we need to focus on the RBT's behavior. They might use extra prompts to reinforce problem behaviors, or they do something that is not correctly, like using language that is not appropriate. And if you are not paying attention to these things, none of that is gonna get documented. When supervision is unplanned, we're more likely to miss high skills that affect the client's safety and progress, and this can include crisis procedures, PSP implementations, or restrictive procedures. Number 2, and this is my favorite, you drift into unstructured case chat instead of teaching or assessing those skills. Number 3, you fail to document what was taught, how it was evaluated or assessed, and what happens next. This is very important. You start with the goal and you end with the goal when you're talking to your RBTs. Number 4, your lack of competency, focus on ongoing concerns. Number 5, you create unclear expectations for RBTs because you're just showing one face of what supervision looks like. You're not showing the whole face of what supervision actually should look like. And lastly, inconsistent supervision notes. And as I mentioned before, this is a way that you can track the progress of your RBTs and also your child. When we wing it, we're basically recreating the same problems that the literature keeps flagging. RBTs often describe supervision as irregular, loosely planned, or focus more on talking about the cases rather than actually building those competencies or measuring skills for both the client and the RBT. So even if we're signing those hours or we're hitting that 5% of supervision, we are not giving the competency-based supervision that they are asking us to give them. And that's actually what the field is asking from us to fix. So let's talk about what the supervision literature recommends. I gather information from 3 articles. The first one is Sellers, Valentino, and LeBlanc in 2016. The name of the article is Recommended Practices for Individual Supervision as Inspired Behavior Analyst. These authors push for clear expectations since the beginning and structure agendas, and of course, competency-based evaluations. The second article is Turner, Fisher, and Riselli in 2016, and the name of the article is Taking Full Responsibility, the Ethics of Supervision in Behavior Analytic Practices. These authors argue that supervision quality is an ethical issue rather than a scheduling one. I've heard in my whole 10 years of practice and a little bit more being in the field, I don't have time for this. I have so many other things to do. But right there, when you say that and when you do that, it's not a scheduling problem. You are breaking the ethics code if you are thinking like that. You have to plan for that quality. The third article is again, Turner, Fisher, and Luiselli in 2016, but this article is called Towards a Competency-Based Ethical and Social Valid Approach to the Supervision of Applied Behavior Analytic Trainees. These authors outline how to tie supervision activities directly with observable competencies and with social validity. That is, that your RBT's comments and feedback is very important. So you have to work together. You have to work as a team. The core themes across these papers are clear contracts and expectations, plan structure supervision, ongoing database evaluation of performance and methods and evaluation of methods, ongoing feedback, and percentage of supervision. So why does planning supervision is an ethical safeguard? Think of it like a behavioral plan. Remember that physical aggression behavior intervention plan that you created? Think your supervision as a behavioral plan. You're going to define targets for your child when you're creating that behavioral plan. You are going to define target behaviors for your RBT when you are supervising. You are going to arrange antecedents with clear objectives, materials, time, when and where they're going to be performing something. You're going to be doing exactly the same thing with your RBTs. You're going to arrange antecedents for that RBT. You're also going to collect data with fidelity or competency tools. And of course, you are going to provide feedback and update goals over time. This is very important. Each of your RBTs need a goal. It can be an easy goal, it can be a very complicated goal, but they need to have a goal in order to build those competencies. If RBTs are there and you are in supervision with them, and you just open the door and you say, good morning, or maybe the door is already open and you said, hi, I'm with you today, you are already late in your planning. Supervision prep is clinical work, not extra work. A planning routine protects the clients, respects the RBT's time. And this is very important because the RBTs are working really hard. And if we are not respecting the time of the RBTs, definitely we are not building competencies and we are not providing the service of what supervision actually means. And third, you make supervision feels like training and not just random feedback or not just random visit with them, that you are actually building those skills with them. So before I continue, the first secret word, guys, is preparation. Like the preparation that I'm gonna show you in a second. So some of the things that I've heard along my career are, I start supervision and I start fixing things. Or I start supervision, I observe the child and I figure it out along the way. Or I really don't have time for this. I have 1,000 things to do. And I completely agree with you guys. Time is always a constraint when you're a BCBA. You will have 1,000 things to do in your to-do list, and that is okay. And on other times, you're going to have a beautiful plan. And you're going to be like, I have the goal, I have this, and I have my BST, and I have everything prepared for this child. And then the child is going to be like, I have another plan for you. So be ready for this. So definitely those things are going to change. But believe me that prepping or planning your supervision is not going to take you long. It's going to take you 5 minutes or less because you're going to be using what I'm going to be teaching you today. So don't worry. Step number 1 is pick the right target. You have to ask yourself, where could an implementation error actually hurt progress or safety for that client? And that's when you choose 1 or 2 concrete RBT behaviors. And this could be as easy as running the BSP steps for 1 specific behavior, implementing prompt hierarchy during NET for 1 skill, collecting clean, usable data for 15 minutes. Very, very easy. It doesn't have to be a huge goal. It just has to be a tiny goal to build those competencies, especially when we have our new RBTs. You know that when we have new RBTs, you probably see, oh, they have all of these skills, they have all of these deficits, or they need to work on these things. And sometimes we can get overwhelmed because you know that that child is not going to get the same instructions as the other RBTs who are more seasoned. So start with little things. Start with just one thing so you don't want to overwhelm them. And of course, you don't overwhelm the child and yourself. Supervision research and BACB guidelines both emphasize that supervision should prioritize high impact and crime relevant skills, not just checking those hours or talking generally about the cases. And this is just not my preference, but sellers and colleagues also talked about this. They all point out to the same direction, where supervision should target skills that actually matter for client outcomes. That means that we just don't get the hours, but we deliberately choose the implementation of behaviors where an error can hurt or will hurt or affect the safety or the programs. And that's where we focus our supervision time. So answering the first, a couple of the things that I mentioned, I really don't know what to do in this session. This is where you focus your supervision time, when you see that something is going to hurt progress or hurt the child. Step number 2, you define good as competency. So you turn that skill that you just picked in step number 1 and you turn it into a competency statement. For example, during 10 opportunities, RBT delivers the planned prompt hierarchy with 90% accuracy. And of course, communicate this to your RBTs, guys. If you have a goal for them, tell them where you want them to be so they can know their baseline and their mastery criteria. Communicate this since the beginning of the supervision will also help you for you to be transparent and for ease that anxiety that builds up with the RBTs when they are being observed. And again, since this step, you are building competencies because you are defining things. Remember that if you cannot define it, you cannot supervise it. And I'm going to say this again. If you cannot define it, you cannot supervise it. Because you need to have tangible statements. Yes, operational define this. Very good job. If you cannot have tangible things, you cannot supervise anything. We are so big on operational definitions with behaviors, and we get so picky when like examples and non-examples, and we are asking the RBTs to identify these things. But are we really identifying what that RBT can and cannot do? If not, I invite you to define good as a competency and you create that mastery criteria. Clear performances criteria let you decide when to give more practice, when to fade support, or when to move on. And this also mirrors what the competency-based training in the literature is described. These supervisees or RBTs are taught, practiced, and evaluated against explicit observable performance criteria, rather than just simply accumulating those hours or that 5% of supervision. Step number 3 is build your BST ahead of time. This is my favorite step, guys, because I become a little bit crazy with these things because I love rationales. I explain a lot to my RBTs. So that's what you're going to be doing here. You pick one sentence rationale or one instruction tied to the child. Here, you talk about the skill that the RBT needs to demonstrate and why it is very important for that RBT to learn this skill. Here, we're not talking about a child knowing what to do, but rather if that RBT is able to demonstrate that skill or not, and why it's important for that child, for that RBT to know the skill. Step number 2 here, you decide where you model it. You'll show the correct behavior, rather role-playing or in vivo, and you will decide that before you go into supervision. So you have a structure. Number 3, you will decide how the RBT will rehearse it. The RBT will practice these skills in a specific context, and you will decide what context is. And lastly, you will decide what specific feedback you will be giving. You can talk about what they did well, what needs improvement, or what they need to practice in the next visit. Very important. You always have to finish your supervision with a mini goal for the next visit. As we know, behavioral skills training, or BST, is a proven evidence-based training package using instructions, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback. And this was told by Parson and other authors in 2012 in their article called Evidence-Based Staff Training, a Guide for Practitioners. So using BST is not optional. It's not an option. It's part of an ethics code, because this is what's going to structure your supervision the best way. Step number 4, you prep your data tool. Bring a simple fidelity form to collect the data. Remember to select the behavior or the skill that you chose in step 1, and you score it correct or incorrect, and you provide narrative, written, and vocal feedback. In other words, if you are observing something, you are providing feedback, you have to document that feedback in a written format, and you have to tell this feedback to your RBTs. Why? Because when you do it in writing, you will have proof that that instructional step occurred, and you're gonna see what you've been teaching over time. This also gives a reference to the RBTs when they want to see how much they improve over time. Providing the feedback vocally makes it real. The feedback is out there, and you and your RBT know what you're talking about. So you have to do it both in a written format and in a vocal format. And also remember that your session notes, it could be taken as your written feedback part. You don't have to do an actual fidelity check or a competency, or use a competency tool every single time you're with your RBT, because you have your notes. So this is very important, guys. Document all of the important parts of your supervision session in your notes. And lastly, or the last step, is plan one barrier question. Ask yourself, what could stop this RBT from doing this well? Examples that I have here are programs are unclear, too many competing demands or programs in one session, or environmental constraints. This could be not enough time in a session, staff were being there, low staff, or missing materials, or materials that we don't have. When you are in supervision with them, it's always recommended to ask this barrier question to the RBTs. It is very hard sometimes for us to criticize what's wrong with our treatment plans, because sometimes we are biased. We are not going to see what we're doing wrong. So when you ask your RBTs to tell you those barrier questions, believe me that they're going to give you the answer to your problems. Here, collaborate with your RBTs. Work as a team, because they are going to give you the feedback, and that's the data that you need in order to modify things. Turner and other authors highlighted the importance of social validity in that collaboration during supervision. So it's very important not to problem solve alone, always to problem solve with your RBTs, or of course, it's better that blaming the situation or blaming the child or blaming the RBT. It's always good to problem solve together. Again, they are your partners. Please be a team with them. So now that you know all the steps in your 5-minute preparation, let's talk about an actual supervision session. And like I said, it's really easy. It's not going to take you more than 5 minutes to write all of those variables right there, and they are in order for you. Use the prep format to turn this into real behavior change by just plugging it into that structure. Maybe your supervision sessions are going to change because your lengths of supervision are going to vary. But in my example, I use 30-minute example. So minutes 0 to 5, you use step number 1. You pick the right target, and you say the purpose of the supervision and pair. How does this start? You're going to greet the technician and the child. I was doing this presentation for a clinic, and when I was asking some questions, they were like, oh yeah, you say hi to the RBT. What about the child, guys? Or what about your patient? You have to acknowledge them too. You can start with something as easy as, how was your weekend? Any plans for tonight? Or, hey, last week you told me that you were going to a concert. How was that? Here you have to be brief, but be sure not to cross those personal boundaries. Also, be sure to use professional language when you are talking about those topics that are not kid related. These are a really good example where you can model how to use professional language, because as we know, RBTs are going to be talking about grown-up stuff when they are with other patients. So it's very important that we model these skills so they are going to imitate us and they're going to be the model for other RBTs. If they're not sharing anything with you, it is okay if you share something personal, something about your life. Just be fun and be funny and just be creative with the things that you share. This is going to make you more approachable, and definitely this is going to make you seem more like a human, and that is okay to joke with you. So joke is not always serious. After you're pairing for a few seconds, you are going to I am so sorry. I lost my train of thought. After you pair for a couple of seconds, you are going to tell the purpose of the supervision. This is going to be completely plain. It's going to be super easy, and you're just going to say it in one sentence. You don't have to take a lot of time here. This could be something like, hey, last time I observed you that you skipped some steps when you were doing the BSP for the physical aggression. And this time I'm going to take it to provide you some feedback with that and to see if you need more training on that or if something is unclear from my end. And as you can see here, when you say things like that, you are making it about the data. You're not saying things like, you were struggling last time that I saw you, or you were not following my BSP, or you were not following my instructions. Don't use that negative language. This is going to cause your RBTs shut down and their performance is not as successful as we want. And at the end, we want them to be successful. We want them to get what we're saying. So using that positive language and describing what you observe is just facts. It's not me saying you're doing it wrong, but it's just, hey, I have the data that I documented, and this is what I observe. So again, this is going to be less personal and more objective here. When you state the purpose of the supervision, also give them reassurance of what they will be observed on, and that definitely is going to lower the anxiety that builds up when you are providing feedback or observing them. Mentioning that you will provide more training at some point in your purpose of supervision. If you said, hey, last time you skipped step 1, 2, and 3 of the BSP, but I'm going to give you more training on that, is giving the information of their baseline and where you want them to be. Again, here you're building competencies. So communicate that to them, that you are going to giving that training right there. And guys, don't just say it. You have to do it. That's how you build competencies there. If you're going to take, let's say, 30 minutes, in my example, I have 30 minutes here to do this just competency building, communicate that to your RBTs as well. You can say, hey, for the first 30 minutes, I'm going to be doing this observation and I'm going to show you how I want you to do it. But then I'm going to be adding programs or changing the BSP or adding a new behavior because last time I observed it. But you have to communicate this to your RBTs. Don't just be there in silence in your computer, just typing. Don't make it awkward. Believe me that over communication is better than zero communication. You can do this for several reasons, but more importantly, because you set the expectation of what supervision actually looks like. If they think that supervision is you are on your computer just typing, that's not really what supervision is. Supervision is directions to the technician, protocol modification, and of course, observation and taking data. So you have to demonstrate that to your RBTs. You have to let them know that that is the whole thing. And that also you're going to be providing feedback. That is part of the supervision. So then minute 5 to 15, you use steps 2 and 4. And you do what it's called a focus observation. Here's where you can use the definition of good that you use as a competency before, and you use your data tool as fidelity check. Here, you're going to watch them how they're running the programs. You're not going to rescue. You're not going to take over. You're just going to gather clean data on what they're actually doing. You're going to document your observations and your feedback. Remember, written feedback right there. Our first instinct at BCBA sometimes is just to jump in and just fix the problem. But if you jump in too early, when you see that error in the behavior of the technician, you will never know what they actually can do. Here, the whole point is for them to problem solve by themselves when you're not with them. Because I've seen in the past, I've seen a lot of things, but I've seen in the past that RBTs do something and look at you, do something and look at you. And of course, we don't want that, because when you're not there, they're not going to have a person to have a reference, you know? So the whole point is for them to problem solve by themselves. And something very important here is that if you're asking them to run a protocol and you're providing feedback on that protocol, that BSP or that skill specifically, you need to have that information available to them. I encounter so many times targets that they're beautifully structured, but they don't have instructions. So how are they gonna know how to run them? So remember, you cannot supervise something that is not defined. So you have to have those instructions available to them. This could be something easy like steps written in the wall, the software that you use to take data, or any other software where you store information about that child. They have to have access to it. And not only that, but they need to know where to find it, and they need to know what's in that document, and they need to understand it. Remember that in this step, you are just observing, not intervening. Unless the child is in danger or the patient is in danger, the technician is in danger, or the targeted behavior for reductions are increasing in rapid rates. Remember the question that you have to ask yourself in the first step of this preparation: where can an implementation error actually hurt progress or safety for that child? This is when you intervene. Other than that, you are not intervening. You are just gathering the data that you need. Minute 15 to 23, you used your BST. And like I said before, I love this step. After you have observed that skill implementation, you're going to use the BST to, one, explain what went well and what needs to be fixed or improved, or just to give a little bit more training. Number two, you model the correct response either with the child or with the technician. And number three, you have the RBT rehearsing it. My recommendation will be that they are going to do it in a role playing with you. But I understand that sometimes we don't have time for that. So it is okay if you do it with the child. But something that I want to mention here is that after let's say two rehearsals and the behavior is still a little bit shaky, I might recommend to break it down into smaller steps and try to do it in the next session. Don't try to do it in one session, because they're going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to build anything there. I know that it's very hard to let go, but we also need to identify when that RBT is not ready. Again, kids, what is the first thing? They are not mastering this. They are not mastering this, right? Because sometimes they have precursor behaviors that haven't been mastered. So it's the same thing with your RBTs. Are you sure that those prerequisite behaviors are mastered? And if not, you start with those. And that's where you focus your supervision. And of course, lastly, you give feedback. You are going to give this feedback, again, written and in a vocal format. Think about supervision as a teachable moment. You can spend, 6 hours. I don't know what the requisites are in Texas, or like the permissions are in Texas, but you can supervise 6 hours a day. Here in Georgia, it's a little bit different, but 6 hours of supervision, and you're gonna change protocols, add targets, add new behaviors, change the BSP, and you have that patient beautifully described. But never forget that when you are in session, you need to make space to shape the RBT's behavior. Supervision is a service, not a luxury. I remember when I started in the field that supervision seemed like, yes, you have to be very grateful because I am here with you. That's how I felt that the whole ABA was was in the beginning when I first started. And I'm not saying that that was my experience. It's just that that's how I felt the feel was at that time. But remember, supervision is the service that we need to do with our RBTs. And it's not a luxury. We're there. Being there is not a luxury for them. It is an ethical service. And the last step is minute 23 to 30. You lock it in. You end with 1 or 2 clear expectations for the next shift. Something easy as, next time that I'll observe you, I want you to run the BSP for physical aggression, and I will be adding the feedback that I just gave you. Or if you want to be more specific, by Thursday, I want you to run the BSP with 3 transitions and then send me a quick message and we can talk about it. Here is where you talk about the barriers. You can say something like, anything in your materials that will make this hard. Remember that we're working with very young people sometimes. Sometimes we have seasoned RBTs and they're our age. But the majority of our RBTs are very, very young. So asking them for a barrier question means, hey, criticize my treatment plan. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. And that could be very, very, very intimidating. So it's very important, or it's to have a good idea to have a barrier question that you bring to them. So they see that you are criticizing or checking for barriers on your own treatment plan. You can say things like, I realize that I don't have all the materials ready for you. Or one thing that I noticed is that we don't have a consistent way to track this between sessions. So what about if I put a data sheet on a clipboard and I put it next to their table? Does that work for you? When you do these things, you are letting them know that you can make mistakes as well, and that is okay. I also worked as a BCBA trainer before this quality assurance job that I have right now. And my whole day was about telling the RBTs who were accruing hours to be BCBAs, and I will train them on how to be BCBAs. We spend the whole day on the floor with the kids, and I will be providing feedback, and I will be training them and literally showing them, hey, this is what the BCBA life is. And one of the things that they mention is that when they received that supervision, when they were only RBTs, when they were not trainees, is that the BCBAs always looked like they couldn't make mistakes, and they will never make mistakes because that couldn't happen. Like, because that will say to the RBTs that you don't know what you're doing. But guys, we're humans. We're gonna make mistakes. I'm very, very transparent with my RBTs and I own my own mistakes. When they're like, man, that's not how you explained it to me the last time, I'll be like, whoops, I'm so sorry. You were right. I made that mistake right there. But I will own that mistake, and I will show them that making mistakes, it's okay. So they don't hide things from you when they make mistakes, and they're completely transparent, and the anxiety is not over the roof right there. So supervision is a behavior analytic ethical service, not extra work or free-form case check. So I'm going to finish this presentation by answering the questions that I asked you in the beginning. What are the most common pieces of feedback RBT have about supervision? Many supervisees report supervision as irregular, loosely unstructured, and not consistently competency-based. Pre-planning your supervision sessions will allow you to make them more regular, and this could be solved by planning your schedules a week in advance. You're gonna tell me, you're crazy. I don't have time for that. But if you make it a habit, guys, to put that in your week, for 30 minutes, you're going to work on that. You're going to be able to identify deficits in the technicians, identify deficits in the clients, or any environmental issues that you really need to do something about. So I invite you to start planning in advance. Not every single thing, but a lot of the things, because that's going to give you a better understanding of the situation. sometimes when you are in the chaos of supervision, because you have other technicians talking to you, other kids, targeted behavior for reductions going, other kids crying around you, a lot of stimuli, you might miss some important things. But if you take a step back and you give yourself that time to plan, it's gonna be better. Also, pre-planning your supervision sessions will allow you to make them structured. That also communicates to your RBTs that you know what you're doing, that you're not just figuring it out in the moment. And that makes you look like a behavior analyst right there. You don't have to pretend. You just have to be a behavior analyst, pre-planning stuff. And lastly, pre-planning your supervision session will allow you to shape the RBT's behavior. They're going to become better versions of themselves and better people for the field. Remember that the field keeps asking to fix these problems. So this is the way that we fix it. We build competencies so these people can be better people for the field. Question number 2, which recommended practices are often missing in everyday supervision? The literature says clear competencies, structured time, and data on performance. I have a question. Have you ever written a goal for RBTs? Yes? Perfect. But if not, I invite you to start doing this. And this is the way that you're going to create competencies. They need to know their baseline and they need to know where you want them to be. In the last question, what does RBT supervision need? They need alignment with client outcomes, or competency-based trainings or BST, and documentation that shows growth over time in alignment with the BACB ethics code and supervision requirements. A way that supervision shows continuity and shows that you know what was the goal and where you left off is just starting supervision with the last thing that you said in supervision, which will be a goal. This goal has to be achievable, guys. It cannot be you are going to demonstrate all of the steps in this behavior intervention plan when they are 1 week of passing the test. That is asking them a lot. So that goal that you end your supervision with has to be achievable. It could be something like, for the next supervision session, I want you to do manding for preferred items 10 times. They can do that. Definitely they can do that. Or the next time I want you to play 3 games with them. It's something easy. And the next supervision time, you're going to start with that goal. So that shows that you remember, and that shows that you are closing the circle right there. We are not going to have time for this activity that I had, but if you want to put it in the feedback form, if you want to answer these questions, that will be awesome. Do you plan your supervision? And if not, how do you structure it? Second, do you use any of the steps that I just presented? And third, what other steps do you use that I missed in the presentation? And definitely I'm going to use what one of you said in the chat that I missed in this presentation. And before we go, of course, we need that second secret word. And that secret word is save. Like all the time that you're going to save when you use this outline. And these are the references that I used to create this presentation. And if you want to know more about supervision, or if you want that any free templates for anything related to supervision, please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or email us to abavisor@gmail.com. And we will be more than happy to help you with anything. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Shirley. That was incredible. We always learn so much from you. Such a great resource that we have. I know we have a couple of minutes left.
Yes.
We want to open the floor for questions, and then I'll do the drawing for the free membership. And then Natalia, can you check your text real quick, please?
Yes, just I'm also reading some of the things that they said. I don't know if they have questions. So, Jessica, you said, are there any effective feedback tracking systems out there for RBTs? Like,
You mentioned this, the one on Central Reach. So that was a question I asked before you ended up
yes, yes.
talking
Oh,
about
I'm
it.
sorry. Yes.
No, you're
Yeah, that one is a really, really good one. And you can set up however you want it, especially because if you use the whole thing of in central of the BST performance, they have like very specific stuff and it's really cool. So yeah, that one is a good one to use.
great. Thank you.
Misty said, I think it's important for us to remember that they are working directly with the client, so we need to empower them to be able to do it without us at times. Definitely. That's the whole point of building competencies, guys, that you are going to have that RBT and you're gonna see like they can do it. They can do it alone. And but remember, just because they can do it alone, that doesn't mean that you're not gonna supervise them. Sometimes we forget about those RBTs. They're so great that you're like, oh, I'm gonna give supervision later because I have other things. But no, they also need to build competencies. Oh, well, thank you guys. Any other questions? Any other concerns that you have? So I don't know, Misty, do you wanna?
Yeah, so now I'm going to draw a name for a free membership for 2026. Um, again, thank you all for coming. Please in the feedback form, again, we're trialing different things. We're big on assessing and, pivoting as needed. So if this time works for y'all, put in the feedback. If it doesn't, and this was not a great time, let us know. We want to know either way. Again, make sure you fill out that feedback form that Amanda has posted a few times. That's how you will get CEUs. And again, make sure those code words are in there. So here's my little shape bucket. Everyone can kind of see it. It's blurred, but everyone's name's entered. Kindle, you won a free membership for the year for ATX ABA CEU. So thank you for attending. And you have a membership covered for the year. So congratulations. So yeah, thank you everyone again for joining. We very much appreciate it. We are trialing the recorded version also. So we can maybe start putting CEUs on our website. We'll get back to y'all on that. But again, thank you everyone for carving time out of your day to listen to the amazing Sherley speak. Such an amazing, amazing mentor for me. So very much appreciative and thank y'all and have a good rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you guys.
Bye, thanks y'all.
Thank
Oh,
you so
and then
much.
Shirley, real quick, can you send your PowerPoint, please? And can we share it with people that attended or?
Yeah, 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 definitely. Like a PDF?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, definitely.
cool. I know people usually
Thanks,
request.
y'all.